Claire. I will be talking about ADHD. I'm not lazy, I have ADHD. To be specific, I will be talking about my life and my ADHD. First, we're going to start with the definition, just in case there's anybody out there that doesn't know. ADHD is an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's one of the most common mental disorders affecting children. Symptoms of ADHD include inattention, not being able to keep focus, hyperactivity, excessive movement that is not fitting in the setting, and impulsivity, hasty acts that occur in the moment without thought. There are 3 types of ADHD. I have hyperactive, but there is inattentive, hyperactive, and combined. Combined is pretty much the 2 of them together, and you mostly get assigned combined when you have mild to severe ADHD. But let's talk about inattentive. Inattentive refers to challenges with staying on task, focusing, and organization. Some symptoms are like doesn't pay attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schools or job tasks, has problems staying focused on tasks or activities such as during lectures, conversations, or long reading, and does not seem to listen when spoken to. Hyperactive, impulsive, that's what I am. Hyperactive refers to excessive movements such as fidgeting, excessive energy, not sitting still, and being talkative. If you can't already tell, I'm rocking, messing with my index cards, hyperactive. Impulsive refers to decisions or actions taken without thinking through consequences. Some of the symptoms are fidgets with or taps hands or feet, or storms in seats. I'm rocking, so think of that as storming in a seat. Not being able to stay seated. That is one of the biggest issues I had growing up. So when it comes to ADHD and how it affected my daily life, recently I'm in college, and so about a year or so ago, I had to go 3 weeks without medication. Mind you, I am medicated for my ADHD, and I had to go 3 weeks without it. It was one of the most mentally exhausting times in my life, because all of those ADHD symptoms that you think of, all of them hit me really hard. I was not motivated, getting overstimulated really, really quickly. I was impulsive, seen as lazy, and I was just really struggling. I was a full-time student, part-time employee, 15 credit hours. It was one of the hardest times ever. And that was just one thing that happened that affected my daily life. Another thing was that, like, when I was growing up, I felt like my medication that I was taking wasn't right. And that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. But like, it really affected my mindset to a point where I would fight with my parents over being medicated and all kinds of stuff. And it took me until college to understand that my medication was doing things that were good for me and not bad for me. And that was one of the hardest realizations that I've ever had to figure out. Another thing is ADHD when it comes to genetics. So my dad has ADHD. I have ADHD. I'm the second born. And then my youngest brother, he was the last one. He is inattentive. He's the inattentive type. I'm hyperactive, and so is my dad. But when I did my research, there's no evidence, well, there's growing evidence, but there's not specific evidence, that genetics contribute to ADHD. But several genes have been linked to the disorder. And no specific gene or gene combination has been identified as the cause of the disorder. So like, it's like growing up around those behaviors is what caused it. But there's no proof of that, but there's also no proof of genes being related to it either. So, other than just my daily life, I'm going to also talk about other people's lives. So, one person said, when I was younger, teachers and coaches often accused me of being lazy because of missed or uncompleted responsibilities. This criticism hurt because I knew it was not true. But it seemed that the harder I tried, the more things slipped by me unnoticed. This was Josh. He was 21 when he wrote this, and he didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until he was in college. So he walked around thinking something was wrong with him with no answers. Another person says, I did not mean to disrupt my class, and I often didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. I realize now that I was not a child with a discipline problem, but a child with ADHD. Children with ADHD are seen as problems, not kids that need help, just problems. And Gretchen was one of those people, and it wasn't fair. There is a force stronger than my own will controlling me. She's describing her ADHD, and it's true. People always think when it comes to ADHD, you're just happy, you don't know how to be quiet, you're just moving around all that much. There's a darker side of ADHD, and no one knows the truth. But Gretchen does, because she walked around until, I'm pretty sure, 8th grade without getting diagnosed, and even when she got diagnosed, she got no help. And she knew something was wrong, but again, she didn't get help. Matt Curry, ADHD is my superpower. You can walk around without having issues with ADHD. It's life, because a lot of the time, some people even go through life without even getting diagnosis. He was able to change what people thought about him and what he thought about himself with his ADHD and used it to create his own company. Jessica. Jessica is the reason why I'm actually even doing this. She was my inspiration. This is from her TED Talk. So my failure was clearly my fault. I just hadn't done what I needed to do to reach it. And honestly, I was tired of trying, putting more effort into life than everyone else, and falling farther and farther behind. At this point, I could have given up on myself. I could have decided that everyone who thought I had potential was wrong, but I didn't. Jessica is the founder of How to ADHD. If you haven't seen that channel, go. Because I grew up on those videos, and it helped me make sure I knew that I wasn't alone. But this is her TikTok, not TikTok, TED Talk. This is what it's really like to live with ADHD. If you haven't seen her TED Talk, go watch it. It is mind-blowing. Okay, so when it comes to how my ADHD hurt my school experience, or how it was involved in my school experience, is that I was diagnosed with ADHD in 1st grade. And I didn't get accommodations until 3rd grade, which was through an IEP. And it was really hard. But those accommodations were what kept me going in school. So one year, I was 16, and I had an issue with a teacher. So I had an accommodation to leave the room to take tests. My teacher knew this. I had let her know the day before the test, and my intervention specialist, basically the person that's in charge of me and all of my issues, he was in charge. He sent an email to my teacher and was like, hey, Claire's gonna be taking the test with me during this period. Just let her go ahead, or you can just send me the test. And she received the email, but when I went to leave to take the test, she told me no. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you have an A in my class. You don't need your accommodations. And that was when I had to know and learn that everything I've been taught how to advocate for myself, I had to use that day. I turned to her and I said, my accommodations say that I can leave the room for a test. Just because I haven't done that yet this year doesn't mean I still don't have that accommodation. And just because I have an A doesn't mean I don't need it. I'd like to leave to take my test. She again told me no, and I lost it. I didn't know how to just keep going over and over and over again in this class. And so I was done. And so I ran out of that classroom, went straight to the testing place called ARC, and I went and found my teacher and I told him what happened. And it went crazy. I didn't have to take a test. I called my mom, and she was so proud of me for advocating for myself. And so was my teacher. He was so proud that I advocated for myself and came to the safe people I knew. And that is super, super important. Other things that also happened in high school, or school in general, was I was just like this very horrible teacher. I was underestimated because I worked twice as hard just to get the average a lot of the time. So when I was excelling in classes that I was really good at, it was because I was working twice as hard. But even when I worked twice as hard in classes I didn't excel at, I was barely passing. And it was one of the hardest things ever. And it was so infuriating. And I had to learn that that was just gonna be how it was. And it took a long time to understand that. So, some takeaways for those teachers and students and parents out there. If your student or child has ADHD, please get them an IEP or 504. This paperwork from first grade till 12th grade saved me. It might not be worth it to you, but please, it is. Do your research and look into IEPs and 504s. You also can look into medications and therapy. Behavioral therapy can help people with ADHD learn skills to cope with their symptoms and help them manage tasks. You can also put them on medications. I'm on medication. It took me a long time to like my medication, but it took me that long because it took a long time for me to understand that it was for my benefit and not for my downfall. Because for a long time I believed that. The medications, stimulants specifically, are best known and most widely used for ADHD medications. Between 70 and 80% of children with ADHD have fewer ADHD symptoms when taking these fast-acting medications. There's also non-stimulants that were approved in 2003. They don't work as quickly as the regular stimulants, but their effect can last up to 24 hours. But they are good on their own. But it's really highly recommended that you do both at the same time. And again, for those teachers and students and everyone else and parents, advocate for your child, student, and yourself. It will benefit you in the long run if you do that. It did that for me. I was able to advocate for myself, and that kind of skill got me to where I am today. I'm in my third year of college in special education, teaching, because I want to go back and I want to advocate for students just like me. And I didn't just come about that on a whim. I learned those skills, and I learned the skills I'm going to use in the classroom from the teachers and my parents that taught me that. So please research, advocate for your child, because it is going to be the best thing for you. I know you're probably scared, but I'm telling you right now, your child is just as scared, or if more so. So the more you do for them, the better. And one of the best things that I realized back when I got ADHD was that I realized that I am who I am on medication or not. But at the end of the day, ADHD is me. And if you can't handle me on my medication or off of my medication, then you can't handle me. And that's not my problem, that's your problem. And please do not treat people with ADHD like they are the problem, because they aren't. Just widen your point of view, and people with ADHD will change your life.